everyone, Jenny with On Fire Fit, and welcome to another episode of High Heel Hallelujah. Today I am talking about success through your state and how not to get caught in a trap, or if you do, how to get out of it successfully. But first, let's look at the shoes. I have done a high heel hallelujah with these shoes before, but they match the dress as well as the theme, and it goes along with my silver lining and the fact that in all situations you can learn to be not only content, but you can become more than a conqueror. And so silver linings are what we're looking for. These are a pair that I bought a long time ago. The brand is really a no-name brand, but I do hang on to them because they go with certain things, and they are a silver heel. Absolutely not the most comfortable shoe in the world, but that's okay. I have a couple that you wear for just a little period of time, depending on what you're doing and where you're going and what you're wearing. So that is the shoe of the day. Just like these heels get caught in this dress, which you will notice in my walking video, I thought, this is hysterical. I am going to leave in the footage of my heels getting all caught up in my skirt because it goes along perfectly with my acronym ATRAP, and we're going to talk all about that today. So stay with me, don't lose me. I have an actual sheet you can print out if you want. I know that this could seem a little overwhelming, but if you have it written out, sometimes that helps. I will also put the acronym in the content below, so you can click on the little down arrow and then it'll be down there too. Success through your state. So we all have a different state of mind, a different state of heart and being, and whatever situation we're in right now. And how can we have success in that state? If you listen to Tony Robbins, he talks about being in a peak state a lot of the time. So the whole point is we all have opportunities to not be in the best state. But what the problem is with that is out of that state is how we act. So what is your state? It is the particular condition that you're in at any specific time. So at the beginning of a new diet, in the beginning of your decision to do something productive or helpful for yourself, the first few days you have a bunch of neurochemicals that come out of your brain that get you excited and fired up. And so you're really motivated and you're really jazzed to do whatever it is. And when you're in that kind of a peak state, you will stop at nothing to be successful. You might have stress come at you, but because you've got all those neurochemicals and you're really excited and fired up, you'll say no to that glass of wine, or you'll give up that piece of cake. After a few days, though, those neurochemicals in your brain start to die off, and they go back to, well, I shouldn't say die off, but they taper off. And so therefore, you're not in a natural hype anymore. So when those other things come at you that make you feel defeated or discouraged, or maybe doubt that this was even a good plan or a good idea for you to do, you're going to be more likely to act out of that and make poor decisions. And this becomes this downward cycle because we never get out of the pit that way. And if you were trying to, let's just use a diet as an example. The first few days is usually where you have the most motivation. After a few days or longer, you start to kind of lose that. As soon as you've got some stress coming at you, or somebody's got candy in front of you, you start to say things to yourself like, oh, did I really need to do this right now? Maybe I should wait for a better time. Maybe because I'm stressed, that'll just kind of help me feel better temporarily. maybe a little bit won't hurt me right now. You start to make a bunch of excuses because you don't have that same neurochemical situation. So what we need is to try to develop a way to get into that peak state of mind and stay there as much as possible, because out of that flows action. This is where it says in the Bible, guard your heart, for everything you do springs out of that. And so when you are really taking care of that state of mind and state of heart, everything flows out of that. So why does your state matter? When you're in a rational state, you have your prefrontal lobes of your brain are fully engaged, and you use your emotions as information and not dictators. So I'm going to repeat that because I wrote that and I want to make sure it makes sense to you. When you are in a rational state, so those first few days when you have made a good decision to make a change, get healthier, your prefrontal lobes of your brain are fully engaged, fired up, ready to go, and you're using emotion as information. So stress might come in. No, that's stress. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give in to that. I am going to stick with this. After a few days, sometimes those emotions become dictators. I'm just not feeling that motivated. I'm feeling kind of sluggish. I'm not really sure that that was such a good idea. Your emotions start to dictate the wrong behavior. So the more time that we spend in a healthy state, the more healthy choices that we're going to make, and then therefore more positive action that we're going to take. So how do we stay in that peak state? How do we stay or change so that we get out of the funk or get out of that trap that we oftentimes find ourselves in? And this is the acronym ATRAP. So ATRAP stands for awareness, thanksgiving, reframe, ask, and physical. So as we go through, if you want to take a look, this is my little acronym. So the first step is awareness. What are you thinking at this moment? And your attitude is your state of mind. So if you, for instance, I woke up this morning and my first thoughts coming into my mind were, how did you do yesterday? And what does that mean? I was like, what am I trying to figure out? I'm trying to figure out if I should feel good about myself. Did I get everything done? Did I eat okay? Did I take care of my body? Did I take care of my family? Did I check off on my to-do list? It already put me in a state of mind that was not healthy because I was trying to over-evaluate myself instead of living in the moment and being grateful for this moment in time. I was trying to reflect back. Now, that's not a bad thing, but to start off the first thing in the morning that way, I need to pay attention and be aware of what thoughts I'm allowing to come into my mind. In Philippians 4:8, it talks about whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is worthy, think on these things. You can go look up the verses that I'm going to reference here, but basically, what are you thinking? And if it is not true and noble and lovely and worthy, then we shouldn't be thinking those things. Let's think of things and intentionally choose. But being aware is the first step, instead of just mindlessly going through the motions of how we normally think. The second part of ATRAP is the T, thankfulness or gratitude. You cannot be angry, stressed, resentful, fearful, and be grateful at the same time. They can't coexist. So in order to snap yourself out of that and to change your mind, you need to rejoice always. And again, I say rejoice. And that is absolutely true. I know it sounds trite, people talk about it, but it is absolutely true. And a lot of times people will say, how in the world am I supposed to be thankful for this situation? All these bad things. I don't believe it means that we are supposed to be thankful for the bad things that are happening. We need to be thankful in the bad things that are happening. And what that means to me is, I'm going to use an example of when my intestine ruptured. My immediate reaction was not to be thankful. After a few days of being a little bit in shock and everything, I was able to get to the point where I said, I am so thankful you preserved my life, Lord. I am so thankful that you have a plan for me. I am so thankful that even in this, you are going to make good come of it. I am so thankful that even though I had a colostomy bag that was my biggest fear, you have shown me that that fear was not necessary, because I am surviving, I am overcoming, and it's all through your Spirit. And He empowered me. So that thankfulness changes the state of mind. If you just stay in this pit of pity, you end up in the pit endlessly. So finding a way to be thankful changes. You cannot be depressed and thankful and full of gratitude at the same time. The R in ATRAP is to reframe. So how can you make this situation or issue a part of God's plan? How can you reframe this? My mentor used this example of a baby bird trying to get out of its shell. So the mama bird could break the shell open and get the baby bird out, but the baby bird would not be strong enough to face the world if mama bird did that. So baby bird has to peck her way out of that shell. And in the process of the pecking, she's actually strengthening herself so that once she gets out of the shell, she is prepared for life that is going to come in front of her. The same goes for us too. How can we reframe this situation and say, what could God be doing here? If I am having a situation where I'm in conflict with my husband, I need to learn a new way of communicating, showing him love, whatever the case. What could God be doing? I bet He is trying to strengthen our relationship, and He's trying to grow me so that I remove more pride, I become more humble, I become more of the person that He wants me to be. So any situation, if it's in a diet situation, let's say you have tried a million different diets and you are again starting a new plan. After those first few days where those neurochemicals got you excited, you're at a point where you are not in the best state and you need to reframe this moment. When you are facing that temptation again to eat whatever it is that's your tempting thing, what can you say? How can I reframe this? I think God is trying to strengthen me, just like that baby bird, to be able to face what is coming ahead of me. Because in this area, when I choose to follow what my mind decided and not what my feelings are dictating, I am actually going to grow stronger. And because of that, God is going to be able to use me in other ways down the road. And so as you reframe, you are actually seeing things differently in a way that will help you to grow and become the person that you want to be. The next part is ask. What can I do regularly to have a successful state? What things do I need to build into my life that I can do repeatedly with discipline to try to develop habits that will help keep me in that peak state? Because you don't want to live in emergency mode all the time. You want to have emergencies and know how to deal with them, but for the most part, you are dealing in a peak state at all times. Everything Christ did, if you are a follower of Jesus, then you know that our goal is to always be more like Him. So anything He did is what we strive to do, because we know that if it was good enough for Him, it's good enough for us. If He needed to do it, clearly we need to do it. So what did He do? Because He was always facing discouragement, people doubting Him, people wearing Him down. He could have been a big nightmare. And yes, He was God, but He was man, and He faced the same temptations as us. So what did He do? He spent regular time alone with the Father. You can look Mark 1:35. He stepped away from crowds and busyness. Matthew 14:23. He, all throughout the New Testament, you will see when Jesus was done with a crowd and healing and speaking and everything, he would go away and spend quiet time. We are such busy doers that we think if we are not doing, and checking a million things off of our list at all times, that we are not doing enough and that we are not doing what we need to be. Jesus made a very clear example that we need times of refreshment. We need time set aside. We need to go off and be alone. We need to spend time contemplating. We need to let go of our phone and not be inundated constantly with messages from the world. We need to separate ourselves. And we also need to give more than we get. And that's in Luke 6:38. It talks about the more that you give, your cup will basically just overflow. When you are looking to be happy, there are two things that will put you in that state. One is gratitude and the other is giving. And if you are in a state of gratitude and you are giving, then you will be happy, because it doesn't matter what situation you're going through. You can be content at all times. And this is a very big part of what we're talking about in this this whole ATRAP, is being content even in a situation that doesn't seem ideal. How can we stay in that peak state? The last thing is in the physical. What can I do right now in the emergency to escape the trap that I feel like I'm in? Change your physical state. Change the physical, and you will notice that a change happens in your mind and your emotions will stop dictating. One thing you can do, I've mentioned this in other videos, is just shake the dust off your feet. And Jesus did that in Matthew 10:14 when he felt like people were rejecting him and he could have been discouraged. He just shook the dust off. You could do that physically. You can do that in your mind. Hey, you know what? I'm aware of what's going on here in my mind, and I am not going to allow this. I'm going to shake the dust off my feet. You can just step away from the situation. In Luke 5:16 talks about when Jesus did that. He stepped away from situations. And we can pray. In Luke 22:41 through 44, Jesus prayed to the Father, and that made a big difference. There's many things that you can do physically. Some people talk about, like, when they're trying to eat differently, they go and brush their teeth after dinner. I like to end dinner and get a cup of tea, because it's sort of my signal that now you're done and this is what you're going to enjoy now. There's different things you can do physically, but they are very powerful in the ability to change your state. And we're trying to change our state of mind and our heart, because our heart is our emotion and our mind is our intellect, and we want those things to be in a peak state. So changing your physical makes a big difference. One of the things that I have noticed is when you are in a worship mode, meaning you are paying attention to who God is, not what he is doing for you, not what he has done, but just who he is. You are worshiping him. Even getting in the position of getting on your knees, bowing and putting your hands on the floor, the physical state of that starts to change everything. It puts things into perspective. God is in charge. God allows things to happen to grow me. God has the ultimate authority. I know in the end, all knees will bow to him. It puts you in a different state just by physically putting your body in that change of direction, and something we don't typically do. So these are things that I would recommend to try to get out of a trap that you might be in. You have made a decision to get healthy or to get your business moving. And after those first few days, when you're all jazzed and excited and you really want to be successful, know and be aware of the fact that those little neurochemicals are going to die off, and you're not going to still feel that way, but don't let your feelings dictate. Start to develop a plan for what you can do. And this I will post. You can definitely take this and make use of it. I had looked for a quote on the whole idea of traps. And it was funny, I looked up, I found this one, it came flying out at me, but it wasn't really sufficient, so I changed it for my own. A trap is only a trap if you don't know about it. If you know about it, it's a challenge that leads to freedom. So can you look at the trap, whatever it might be for you, and see it as a way to get free, and a way and an avenue to freedom, and a challenge? I think it's all in how we change our state, and it can flip like that. You do not need a lot of time. You simply need to take the time and adjust. Well, we lost you because I went into low battery there, but we just basically need to have a change in state, and it can happen in an instant. I hope that you'll make use of this. Until the next episode of High Heel Hallelujah, I hope that you are not stuck in a trap, but that you are living your life on fire.
You have to stay for the outtake at the end of this walk. Oh my goodness, before I got out here to do this walk, you will laugh at the trap I got in and my getting out of it. So stick around.